Well, I'd like to welcome all of you, beautiful women, to the next 13 Moons session, which is Recovery of the Natural Self. This is part of our bigger series of the 13 Moons seminar series honoring the spiritual life cycle of a woman. As we began last time, where we spoke about the earth element and starting from that deep dive of where we begin our journey of recovery and reclamation, of creating a platform for ourselves, and really shifting that dynamic of where we source true nourishment and a real good sense of mother love that extends and transcends our own biology and our own familial experience, but into that realm of nature and into the realm of spirit, and then ultimately into the realm of ourself. So now that we've worked with the first chakra and that earth element, we start to move up the system, tracking our life cycle experience with the little girl. And we do that by moving into the second chakra. As we talked about the first chakra being the earth, the second chakra has to do with the element of water. And as we think about the characteristics of what we aspire to when we want to feel that connection to really being open and able to be creative and enthusiastic and sourcing a real sense of spontaneous joy and rhythm of life, we think of water. Water doesn't have a container of its own, it moves. And so the difficulties that we find is when in the process of growing up is that in the desire to kind of organize and order our life experience through our families and through our cultural experiences, one of the side effects of the containment that is outside of us as we start to grow as young children is that we're often in situations where we have an experience of being shamed as part of the experience of learning how to contain ourselves. And so as we start to feel that sense of shame or guilt or what we did wasn't okay, we begin to inhibit and repress ourselves. And then what starts to happen is the water still needs to express itself. So just like we find those areas in our lives where there's leakage and we find water intrusion throughout our structures, we find the same thing begins to happen through the journey of our life, that if we don't know how and we don't feel comfortable expressing ourselves naturally and feel worthy in that process and really entitled to that process in some kind of basic way, it ends up coming out in things like addictions and depression. And because that suppression, if we think again about water, the heaviness of the water and the water having to find another source, we still want to find a way to be ecstatic. We still want to find a way to be, to disappear into other realms and to feel that magic and to feel that creativity. So this is some of the difficulty that we're seeking to not only repair, but really re-inspire ourselves to find out who we really are and to not find it from here, but again, our heart, but also our primal, just innate wisdom. So what we're really seeking in this journey, I would probably say that this particular session is more of a classic soul retrieval, because we really go into the story of stalking our natural self. So what we encounter in that is we encounter obviously some of the wounds from our earlier childhood or along the way. The way we thread in the particular facets of how this affects a woman's journey, it also has to do with us feeling that our experience of being wild women, of being wild little girls, of our sexuality, even at the youngest level, is labeled and branded as not okay, and yet it's also informed by what we grow up around. So even though the second chakra is traditionally called the sexual chakra, in this particular session of 13 moons, we really try to strip it down into restoring the initial experiences of the revival of that little girl that is so enthusiastically excited when she sees the mud puddles or the ocean for the first time that she just runs right in, that she goes ahead and wants to explore life in all the beautiful ways that are not only what we might consider to be through play, but also through the sensual experience of touching life and exploring from that really deeper level. So again, it's a beautiful, beautiful, deep, tender journey. We connect with the waters, we connect with a lot of beautiful magic that comes when we're connected to our little girl self. It's also a wonderful opportunity for women who have been struggling with their creativity, their innate wisdom, reproductive related kinds of imbalances, such as fibroids and difficulty with our menstrual cycles, secondary difficulties with migraines that come out of our hormonal imbalances. All of this has to do with our waters inside, our moon time, our expression of the feminine. So as we create these balances of restoring our natural self and sit and move with those rhythms, a lot of what's become inhibited and suppressed in our body processes and in our psychic processes and in our mental processes start to come into balance, just like we look at the waters of the world, coming into balance now in our life. And then we use this as our basis several months down the line to explore a more mature sense of our sexuality as wild women. So this is more the journey of the expressive little girl in her magic and in her wonder and in her innocence, and being also felt that she has a natural boundary around her that isn't intruded upon and isn't too rigid. So we really hope that you join us for our second session. If you weren't able to make the first session, it's absolutely no problem. If you can't make it, just come and join us for our next session in April, where we start to work with the fire element and the girl warrior. So really hope to see you with us in March, and look forward to weaving our beautiful circle together.